Greetings to our listeners and welcome aboard to episode 51 of the Six Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Sergio, sitting in here this week with my co-host, Anthony, as we take you through a special episode, if you will. It is our Blue Jay preview episode. We do one of these a year, and then we don't talk about the Blue Jays ever again, right? Is that kind of how?
Yeah.
No, man. That's you got to talk about the Jays all summer long, and hopefully it'll be positive vibes this year, and maybe not all the stress of last year. But I get the sense that that's not going to be the case. But that's what we're here to discuss today. So, Ant, first off, how are you? How was your week leading in?
Good. Fantasy baseball's up and running.
Yes, sir.
Right, we both did a draft on Sunday, so that was fun.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just actually, whether we have high prognostications for the Blue Jays or not, just can't wait for the season to start, to be honest.
It's always something about the start of the Major League Baseball season that always excites me. I don't know, because
Sure.
it's like summer is starting, even though it's just spring that started, but that's kind of the feeling. You know that once baseball starts, that summer's around the corner. So, I mean, that's where I'm at personally with it. That's where I rest with how I feel about baseball, and I'm excited to get out to the ballpark. I'm excited to see what changes that they made. Inevitably excited for the roof to open, all of that stuff. So I'm sure that you.
That's the thing about playing baseball in Toronto. There's two official openings, right? It's the season opener,
right?
And okay, so that's actually three. You have the season opener, then you have the home opener, and that's common amongst every Major League Baseball team, obviously.
Right.
But then you have the day where, hey, first game when the roof is open.
Which,
right?
By the way, they opened the roof a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
So if you remember when it was super warm here,
Yeah.
that was during March break. So I don't know if it was last week or the week before, whatever. I've lost track of time. They finishing the construction, they opened the roof. So it's like they were able to, do the first test run of the roof. So I'm like, it'd be nice. I don't know what the long range weather forecast is for April. You can never really take that stuff to heart. But I hope that we get some warmer days in April and they get that roof open earlier than what it normally is.
I think last year they opened it at
it was the earliest ever.
It was the earliest ever, right? Sometime end of April, if not right at the beginning of May. Yeah.
Yeah. It was something like that.
Fingers crossed, because renovation or not, that's a very different ballpark when the roof is open compared to when it's closed.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that. 100%. Okay. Our trusted Blue Jays. Where do you want to start? You want to take
wins.
And that's our episode, folks.
I don't know what the prop bets are or whatever, what Vegas is calling or what Shohei's got money on when it comes to the Jays, but
I
86.
Love this is going to be the first night that we try to post a video of our recording to YouTube. So to the people listening, look out for that. But live in the moment now, I am going to go on FanDuel because now I'm curious, just because you said it. I wonder if they have posted. Oh boy, when the phone gets all out of whack here. They should have. Okay, win totals posted. Yes. Okay. Toronto Blue Jays best. No, that's not it. Worst regular season record. That's not what I'm looking for.
Don't make me have to dig up stats search, because then there's going to be that great video moment where you're going to watch.
No. I've just got to go in alphabetical order here. Okay. A, B, C, D. No. Okay. Toronto Blue Jays are posted at an over-under of 86.5 wins on the season. 86.5.
86.5.
Wow, the books don't like the Jays. I can tell you that much. We had 88 or 89, if I recall, last year off the top of my head. I think it was 88, but whatever.
I think we won 89 games last year.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So they've got them basically a couple of games less by the books. You threw out an 86. I'm kind of in line with where your thinking is, but now we've got an episode to break down why our thoughts are there. So let's start with what we've seen in spring training so far. So let's just go there. We never, one thing that when you and I always talk off podcast and we talk about baseball, we talk about spring training. it's always commonly never really throw too much into what you see in spring training. The most important part of spring training is to try to get your players through as healthy as possible. That's one. Because for the most part, things can only go wrong in spring training. Vladimir Guerrero had a hot spring training. It doesn't mean anything. It means nothing because the stats don't count.
Right.
But Vladdy didn't tear a kneecap. Very important, right?
Yes.
Like these are.
Vladdy didn't step on a water sprinkler.
Yeah, you didn't step on our water sprinkler and do some damage. But they didn't come out of spring training unscathed completely, if you will.
No. Yeah.
Swanson had a late start to spring, so I think that's part of it. And perhaps some general soreness for him. But then Jordan Romano at this point, for all intents and purposes, the latest updates are they may start the season the first 2 weeks without those two relievers.
Right.
And that's back of the bullpen important stuff right there. That's your closer. That's one of your setup guys.
Against a very daunting schedule to start the season.
A very daunting schedule
right?
to start the season.
You kind of worry if they get off to a bad start what the mindset of the team becomes.
Yes. Yes.
You hope not because the season is so long.
But that it's a big road trip to start the season, and it's tough opponents. You've got Tampa to start the season. You've got the Yankees. You've got Houston. Like there's no layups. They're into it immediately.
Yeah.
From a Kevin Gausman standpoint, who was also battling through some injury in spring training, it's exactly wiped your forehead on that one.
Yeah.
So it sounds like he's going to start game 4 or 5 of the season. So he's into the rotation. That's good news.
If you thought spring training games don't matter, I'm sorry, folks. Yesterday's Gausman start mattered.
That one mattered.
That was must-see TV.
Yeah, because, that one mattered.
I mean, so you're saying he starts the season 4 or 5 in the rotation.
That's what the word is right now.
65, 70 pitches.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't know what his pitch total was yesterday. I feel like he was up near that. To have 7 strikeouts in a game would suggest to me that it wasn't 30 or 40 pitches. I don't want to do the live looking as we're looking right now, but I'd say 75, 80 pitches if he's going smoothly.
Yeah,
would probably be barometer. 5 innings pitched, maybe somewhere in around there.
That's a big ask. I think that's a big ask.
Well, my concern is when you have these injuries, right? And so I think that part of our win total prognosis is based on, and this is going to be, I think, one of the most important elements here, is when we look at last year, so much was talked about how the offense failed them last year. And we don't have to rehash it. We get it. Offensively, the Jays were very mediocre last year in a lot of key statistics, hitting with runners in scoring position, way down on home runs. So things that are relative to actually bringing runs across the plate. But what I feel like never really got talked enough about was the fact that their pitching literally saved their season last year. There isn't a chance in hell that the Jays would have made the playoffs last year had their pitching, both starting and bullpen, performed at the rate that they did.
Mm-hmm.
And their pitching, more importantly than anything, got through last season pretty much unscathed from injury, right?
Yeah.
There was no major injury there. I know that we were short on Romano for a little while, right? And at different points, perhaps you can afford very, very small spells without someone. But when I look at it this year, the reason why my prognosis would be so low is because though you can't forecast injuries, you also can never forecast 100% health.
Yeah.
And I would probably have 2 different win totals if you gave me the option of saying, what's your win total if they remain 100% healthy or as close to it as possible? And what's your win total if reality hits? Because the reality is that there's likely going to be some injuries. Well, that's the reality.
Did they go a month without Bo Bichette last year?
Yes.
It was a month, right?
It was a month, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so technically you make an argument. So 2 points. One, I think you can make an argument that they played a month without their best player.
Sure.
right? And they actually did pretty. I don't know what their win-loss record was, but I do remember there was a time in the season when the kids came up, the
Right.
Spencer Horowitz and the Ernie Clements, and they just provided
David
and
Schneider.
obviously David Schneider,
Yes.
obviously David Schneider.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was huge, right? And it just kind of changed that season.
It
So
did.
I mean, and I'll take a little bit issue with the idea of that they went unscathed from a starting pitching standpoint too, because their Cy Young candidate season opener, Alek Manoah, like okay, look, if he pulled, if he tore a UCL and was gone for the year, we call it an injury. Whatever it is with him, if it's the shoulder, if it was mental, whatever it is, it was an injury, right? Like it was something that did not allow him to perform.
Right.
So we went all year without the guy who we thought was a Cy Young candidate.
Mhm.
Right? We thought the future of the Jays is Vladdy, Bo, and Alec in terms of age and things like that and potential. So we went a year without him. Now, I think you looked that up. I remember a few weeks ago we were talking about this casually. They won 8 games in Alek Manoah's
It was
start,
actually a little bit more. Yeah.
right?
Again,
And that depletes a bull. Like those turned into bullpen games. Those were like,
yes.
the opener kind of game, right?
Yeah.
So my only thing with like why I'm at 86 is listen, Vlad has an all-star season. They might go to 91. It's potential, but you could, it's baseball, right? Like you can have a great season and you still lose. Sure, he hit 2 homers in a game that they lost 5-2. Um, I'm just a little down that they're starting the season without Manoah again, right? So
Right.
like nothing's changed, right? Like from the offseason to today, I feel like nothing's changed. They moved some pieces around, but it's the same pieces, right? Like something in, something out. No more Brandon Belt, but we got Justin Turner. No more Matt Chapman, but we got IKF. IKF who had a great spring, right? He batted 341. Does it
Right.
translate? No one wants it to translate. Like everyone kind of wants this to be a disaster, so we could blame Atkins for yet a
Which is
taking
so
a
horrible,
horrible
right?
offseason.
But yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I like when they introduced this guy at the home opener,
He might get
it
booed.
will be the quietest ovation. Bring out the trainer and then go to IKF so the trainer
Wow.
feels good about himself because
Wow.
that's where it's going to be. But like, so where's the upside, right? Like, and that's the thing. So last year, it's true. Like we had a pitching rotation that performed admirably. They were impeccable. They were elite, and we won 89 games.
Yeah.
So if the offense comes up a bit, that fingers crossed. It's more fingers crossed than an expectation that it should perform better, in my opinion, as opposed to now a pitching that, okay, are we going to get that performance again from Yusei and Jose and Bassett and Gossman? And then you're just throwing in another question mark, right? Like you're throwing in another question mark with Bowden Francis. So a part of me says, like now, like I'm pissed that we don't have a Blake Snell or at least a Jordan Montgomery or we didn't make a trade to solidify that rotation to go from 86 to potentially 89, 91.
Okay. So let's play a game here for a quick second. So you have him at 86. In your opinion, what has to happen to get them to 92? 6 additional wins.
No more injuries than what we're already dealing with.
No, but I was saying, but it's all,
Right.
but
But it's all-
that the
it's all
delta is
relative.
all on offense at this point for the most part.
To get to 92, you're going to need another season like you had from the starters.
So that has to happen.
That
regardless.
has to happen.
Okay.
I don't think you can have. I think you need some certainty from your 5th starter, more than what I think Bowden Francis is going to provide.
I have question
but to
marks
go-
on Yusei Kikuchi too right now. So
Well, you feel like it, right?
right.
Yeah, you could watch Yusei just implode, right? At any point. But I think for me the big thing is, and again, like this is a season 2 where George Springer basically was healthy the entire year. He just didn't play well,
Right.
right? In 90, like last
But
year.
that's
know?
the point that I'm getting to, right? So for them to make that jump, right?
For them to make that jump, I think Vladdy's got to be an all-star.
But is it only tied to him? Because I still don't think that's enough. And that's what I'm getting to, right?
Right.
So when you look at where the offensive struggles came last year, okay, it wasn't just Vladdy, who had a reasonable season. It's just not what you expect of Guerrero in terms of the totals. So there's Vladdy, there's Springer, who you alluded to, who had a down year. Alejandro Kirk had a down year, right? Jansen, who looked like at one point was really starting to put it together, got injured again, right? So it's unfortunately the story of Danny Jansen and Dalton Varsho, who we can jump into a little bit later on in the episode, didn't have a really good first season as a Toronto Blue Jay.
Right.
The defense was spectacular, and there's something to be said about defensive runs saved, that particular metric, understanding that defense can win games. It's part of the reason why I think they went out to go get IKF, because they were never going to pay Chapman to come back.
No.
IKF still provides above average defense at third base, assuming that he's your starter every day. He'll get the ball to start, but is that still the case in May or June remains to be seen. But as of right now, he still brings in that defensive element. I think that it really comes down to those core offensive players that we talked about. It's not just a rebound from Vlad, but it's a rebound to the norm for Springer. It's Alejandro Kirk coming back and hitting like he did 2 years ago and not last year. And in general, doing better as a team, so on a whole, with runners in scoring position.
Right.
Vladdy wasn't bad with runners on base last year. I think it was, at one point, him and Bo were both over 300. So they were the only two guys that were doing it with runners in scoring position. I think Vlad finished in the 280, 285 range. Still not bad. But the reality is they're your two best hitters, but they can't be your only hitters that are hitting with runners in scoring positions, because invariably a pitcher is going to try to pitch around them in those instances. It's the other guys that all of a sudden, I tried to pitch around Vladdy, and now Justin Turner's coming up, or you're getting to Varsho, and they've got runners on and 2 outs, and they've got to find that hit. And that's what the team wasn't doing last year.
I brought up a point to you casually a couple weeks ago where I said, here's the thing, though, about this Blue Jay lineup. Because we were kind of pissing on them, and we're getting down, and we're like, come on, man. Like, we both love the team so much. We both love the game so much.
Right.
Like, we can't give up on them. Like, April.
Right? It hasn't even started yet.
April, it hasn't even started yet. And we're already like, this team stinks, blow it up. Because they don't stink. They don't stink at all. This is a good baseball team. Right? I don't know if they're elite,
Right.
But when you look at the lineup, like, you can say, although some positions might be harder to improve upon than others, right? I think it's hard to go out and get an elite second baseman. I think it might be hard to go out and get an elite third baseman. But,
okay.
It's not hard to go out and get a corner outfield with some pop, right? And so if the offense struggles, if it is stagnant, if it looks like, wow, more of the same to 2023, the eventual move of whether it's Varsho or Kiermaier to the bench as a fourth outfielder, and then you bring in that other outfielder who provides pop. I don't want to say names because I don't want to get into trade speculations or anything like that, but that might not be so hard to find. Like a boost to this offense might not be so hard to go out and get. That's my point, And I'm and then from the pitching standpoint, from the starting staff, my thing with Bowden Francis is if we are hoping that this is a legit team, I don't think you start with a rookie, who's not necessarily like, an amazing prospect either. So fingers crossed, Alec can get it going. And again, if you need to go and augment this rotation and supplement it with another arm, I don't think that's impossible for this team to go get either.
I think that, and look, this bears a worth in speaking of, in my opinion.
So quickly, if I could just finish one second.
Yeah, go ahead.
So those two moves that I don't think are necessarily are going to be that difficult to do in, say, June and July might be a reason why then this team goes from 86 to 91.
Okay. Also a reason perhaps why they were so quiet this offseason.
Yeah. Yeah, because, like we talked about free agent signings, and then, at one point, there's always a natural order in the offseason, right? Okay, we've spent our money. Now it's time to make a trade. Did you even get a rumor of a trade rumor? Like nothing, right?
Nothing.
Like there was nothing. It was so quiet. And it was pretty quiet around baseball.
Yeah, it was a quiet offseason in general.
Horrifically quiet. Like, wow, we're just kind of waiting for seeing what Chapman and Snell and all these other Boras clients are going to do.
Well, I mean, San Francisco saved the Boras Corporation, I guess.
Yeah.
With the number of these signings. But It was generally a quiet season around baseball, but I also think that a lot of that was predicated because of who was out there in free agency this year. You and I have said this even on previous episodes of this podcast. Outside of a Snell, outside of Ohtani, obviously in the Ohtani chase, boy, maybe the Jays dodged a bullet there. Pete Rose version 2, not even. But when you look at the quality of the free agents that were out there, there really wasn't anything that, if it was my money being spent, that I would go willingly. I didn't want the Jays to give Chapman 5 or 6 years.
No,
I
no.
didn't see it. And, even some of the other guys that were out there. So I'm not completely dissatisfied with what they did. For me, it was, okay, you've clearly shown as an organization that you're willing to spend. The Jays are into the tax threshold. So for anyone that's watching that doesn't understand the implications of how baseball works and salaries and all of that stuff, there are tax thresholds, different tiers in baseball. And to pass the first one, you need a payroll that goes over $237 million. And I want people to sit there and really, like, if you don't really understand the business of the game, the Jays are carrying a payroll over $237 million. If you have been a fan of this team for more than a minute, and I say, hey, go back 3 years ago, did you ever think the Jays were going to be a $200 million payroll team? Your answer would have been, that would have been your answer. Like 100%.
And that comes at the same time with a $400 million renovation.
A $400 million investment in renovation. So do not fool yourself. This ownership, unquestionably, in my mind, is committed to this team. Was there a free agent that they felt pushed the threshold that was going to make the team so much better that it would have been worth going into the second tax threshold? I don't think so. No, because outside of Blake Snell,
one guy.
There was Ohtani.
There was Shohei. That was it.
But Ohtani was never going to put them into that tax threshold, because if you read the reports after, he had requested of the Jays the same thing that he got with the Dodgers, which was a deferral. Ohtani would have been on the books for $2 million with the Jays too. So he was never going to push them over that tax threshold. Maybe the Jays would have been a little extra committed to going to get yet another piece. I don't know. That's purely speculative. I think that had they landed Ohtani, that would have, sort of taken them down a different path, but maybe it wouldn't have, because bringing him in would have likely been enough. Then you could have, I don't think anyone would have complained after about, they signed, Kiner Falefa. Yeah. Who cares? We got Ohtani, right? So who cares who plays third, right? Yeah. And that's where I think that it got a little weak. But much to the point that you were making, I don't think that anything is prohibiting this team to add if they feel the piece is right. And I think that they're comfortable going into the season, understanding that they have enough capital in terms of prospects that they can deal to get players that play these lesser positions if that's what they deem that they need. You need a power bat in the corner outfield, you go out and get one. It's likely not going to come. I mean, outside, you're not trading for Juan Soto in New York, but do you understand what I'm saying? Like, outside of some all-star name that we're not speculating yet, a guy like Soler, and I'm not suggesting he would be the trade target, but I'm just using him as an example so that we can kind of paint, a guy like that is like, hey, he hit 36 home runs last year. So who's that guy this year sitting on a team that's not going to be competitive, that might be in the last year of his contract or have maybe one more season after this, that's not going to cost you 5 A-plus prospects, but it's going to cost you maybe a couple of mid-row prospects and just the ability to take on whatever salary that team might be paying him, because they might be looking to get out from it. And you bring him in, and that helps create a boost for the team. There's really not a lot of holes. So it does go back to what you were saying over there. Like, where do you find the fits on this team? It's not going to be at first base, right? It can be at second base. I just don't know what names are out there that drastically improve second base, like you said. Shortstop's untouchable. Third base is an option. So, I mean, one thing that you and I talked and floated around about, given what San Diego did this offseason in unloading some of their salaries, if the Padres were a team that, I don't know, started the season like crap and April has passed, are they more willing to take a phone call on a Manny Machado or a Fernando Tatis? Maybe that's the play. Again,
Yeah,
purely
and Tatis
speculative,
was the
but
name that I was always thinking about, outside of the fact that then up until a few days ago they went out and got Dylan Cease, which tells me that they're probably looking to actually kind of be serious for the next year or so. You know,
yeah,
that
but
would be quick because they gave up prospects in that deal too. So I
I
don't,
get that. But
but
Cease is a long term fix. So maybe Tatis isn't the name, but maybe Machado could be, right?
yeah, no, I mean,
He's a little
like, and
older.
yeah,
It's a
again,
long
we
way
get
of
into
saying
trade
that there's options.
speculations and stuff. You could
Yeah,
look at basically the entire American League Central and go, is there a bat in there? Because that division stinks, right? So
yeah.
then,
Well, yeah, it
like, three
does.
of those teams will be done by June 1st, anyways. Probably
There's
not, because the division sucks so much. They're only going to be 4.5 games out of first, because even though they'll be 4 or 5 games below 500.
right.
But
Well,
but if you can, I just really do believe, and that's where my optimism for this season comes from. It does come from, I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry, Bell or TSN or anybody else who watches this team and thinks that the problem on this team is Rogers. It's not. They are devoted to this team. There is a commitment to put this team forward and
yeah,
and put a winning product on. So if in, like we said, we get closer to a trade deadline, when the activity picks up and this team is, like, we're there, we're close, but you can tell that there's something missing. It's a repeat of last season a little bit. Um, and I don't even think they're going to be very. I don't think they're going to be very patient. Like, I think it could be something like mid May if they get signs of 2023 again and a stagnant offense. Um, I think they go out and make a move. I really believe that. Like, as long as somebody else wants to dance, right? I think if somebody else is interested, I think they go out and make a move.
right.
There's going to be enough bad teams you can pick from. Colorado, teams are kind of not really doing much. The Mets might want to. There's some names there, right?
Oh, come on! Didn't the Mets just the Mets saved Boris on JD
On JD
Martinez?
Martinez, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So they did that. Dalton Varsho. Let's uh let's
Hmm.
talk about this a little bit because I mean that trade, the perspective that came from that trade after the aftermath as the season unfolded. I mean, it could not
Could
have
have gone
gone.
worse.
Yeah, it could not have gone worse.
Yeah,
So
it's just a lightning rod, eh?
a 100% lightning rod, 100% lightning rod. And that's the playoffs in Major League Baseball, eh? Um, the best team is often not sitting in the World Series. And when I say the best team, I mean it's air quotations, right? But the team with the best record at the end of the regular season is not often playing in the World Series. Year after year, the highest spending team, the best record team gets eliminated
Yeah,
because just like any playoffs, the minute the playoffs start, anything can happen. And you've got 3 game wild cards, and then you've got 5 game divisional series, and that's relative. Um, when a team is fully loaded, if their players go cold for a couple of games in a 5 game divisional series, doesn't matter if the team standing across from you is the Arizona Diamondbacks, you're eliminated, right? Because they get hot and you get cold, and that's the way that the playoffs work.
yeah. And
Um,
even if you were hot, you got to take a few days off,
yeah,
so the wild card plays
yeah.
out, and you kind of make yourself cold.
And you make yourself cold. So, that's all a really long way of saying. So Varsho comes into Toronto last year. It doesn't work. Like, it's just like it doesn't click for him offensively. There's things there and whatever. And again, defensively, great season. Offensively, piss poor. And then the 2 guys you traded for him helped take Arizona to the World Series. Um, Gabby Moreno had a pretty good regular season, but really turned it on in the playoffs. And then you had Lourdes Gurriel, I mean, also getting big hits. So it really did not help the narrative at all for the Jays and how it looked and all of that stuff. So putting that all into perspective, it's a clean slate now. Arizona didn't win the World Series. Thank God, because I think that would have just made things worse. Now we're looking forward, and you've got Dalton Varsho in his age 27 season. And as happens so often in this city, and I really don't try to malign the fans in this city or really make fun of them or call them unknowledgeable, but let's call a spade a spade. It's a hockey puck city, right? Like, the frozen rubber comes first
Sure. Oh yeah.
in
Sure.
this.
Okay. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's unquestionable.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I think that people often don't know how to properly judge baseball players. When do they hit their stride? You get spoiled in baseball when you get players like Vladimir Guerrero or Bo Bichette or other young stars across the league. But players that come in and hit their stride at 21, 22, 23 is not common in Major League Baseball. There's a reason why they are considered superstars because that it's not common. Far more often, it takes players well into their 20s, late 20s, to find themselves offensively. Because if you're not a superstar, you really don't make it to the big leagues until you're 25, 26, right? And then it takes you a few seasons to really get it, right?
Yeah. And I know where you're going.
Yeah.
It's such a chess game, right? Right.
Okay. Where
It's
am I
such a
going?
chess. Well, no, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm
No,
actually just
but tell
gonna
me where I'm going.
like
I know
like
you know
I'm
where
gonna
I'm
back.
going. Where am I going?
Well, I think you're thinking that he's primed to have a big season,
Well, it's coming. And I
right?
don't know if it's going to be this year, but
Right.
I think you have to look no further than the history of this team with some of their players who have been held in high regard. Um, Fellow corner outfielder Jose Bautista, fellow corner outfielder Teoscar Hernandez, and another one, not a corner outfielder, but he ended up being a corner infielder and first baseman, Edwin Encarnacion. These guys, and Eddie's a bit of an anomaly because he showed power in his Cincinnati days before he was traded to Toronto, but could never
He
get
was
the
also
average
designated for assignment.
when he came here. Yeah, after
Yeah.
his that first season in Toronto, but it never fully clicked. And for Encarnacion specifically, it clicked. It started to click, I should say. And I'm looking off screen here because I've got a visual. I'd love to know if I can screen share this stuff. Um, you know what? I'm going to try something on the fly here. Look at this.
Put your
Can,
seatbelts on, folks.
can I screen share anything? No. It doesn't tell me what.
That's awesome. Nothing
Yeah.
better than this on live.
Yeah, live thing. Anyway, so like as this is potentially trying to load, I don't know. Like I see myself frozen now in the midst of this trying to actually do something.
No, you're not frozen. You're good.
No, I know that. It's just it's trying to load, and I don't know if it's going to load.
Listen, here's the thing with Varsho too. What if Varsho was the everyday center fielder last year, played above average defense? Would we have had a different opinion of him? Right? Like,
I think
does he
people
not
want to see
suffer from the fact that we don't really care for like above average defense in left field?
Well, I
Because
think
that's where you think you should have. That's where one of your boppers should be coming from,
yeah, but I think that people. Well, yes, I think that that's part of it, right?
right?
Corner outfielders typically produce a lot of power, and he like offensively, outside of the average and everything. I mean, he still hit 20 home runs, 27 the year before, and I feel like had he matched the totals from his last season in Arizona, which was 27 home runs and 74 RBIs, that perhaps people would have been a little bit more
Yeah,
excited.
yeah. I mean, like, what do we
The
want to
batting
see,
average
right?
still
Fewer
sucked. Yeah,
strikeouts, fewer strikeouts, higher batting average. Don't tell me batting average doesn't matter. Please stop. It matters.
it matters.
Raise your on base, reduce the strikeouts. I mean, the negativity from the analysts out there is if you want to get him out, you throw him a high fastball. So whether he's
Right.
27 or 21, whether he's a high end prospect or a guy who's entering his kind of like prime, whether it's this year or next or whenever, he's got to make those adjustments. Those are adjustments that have to be made. So the scout on you, the book on you, Dalton, is, high fastball. Yeah, he can hit it. So either you start laying off if they're not strikes, or you find a way to turn on one. And then from there, maybe you get to 27 home runs. Maybe, like what's a good season for Dalton? Me personally, 260, 25?
Well, I'd probably go
Three
back and
thirty
say,
on base?
okay,
Is that too much?
so
Am,
what?
am I asking too much?
So here's this. Okay, I'm going to give it to you, and then you can go with it. Edwin Encarnacion, age 27, age 27 season with the Jays, 21 home runs, 51 RBI in 96 games played. So that's important, okay? Because I can't remember the specifics if he got injured that year or whatnot. 244, 305. His age 28 season the next year, now he's starting to figure out the bat. The power's not there, okay? Full season, 134 games played, 17 home run, 55 RBI, but the average jumps up 272, 334 on base. So now the eye is starting to come in for Edwin. Age 29 season, It hits. 42, 110 driven in, 280, 384.
He also stops playing third base.
Yes.
Takes a lot of pressure off.
Yes.
And moves to first.
Absolutely. Relative. And I think that was always relative
right?
in the Edwin conversation.
Yeah.
Jose Bautista, okay? We know what had happened. Traveled, throughout Major League Baseball, whole ton of teams.
Yeah.
Finally gets his opportunity in Toronto, age 28 season, okay? 113 games played, finishes the year with 13 home runs, 40 RBIs. Okay? That was the season in which it clicked in September. So I don't remember off the top of my head, but I believe that was the September that he hit 9 or 10 home runs. And it's like he found something. He figured it something came together. And it most certainly did, because the next season, age 29 season, 54 home runs, 124 RBI, 260, 378 on base. Like it was clicking.
And who does Jose help or give credit for that success? Cito Gaston.
Well, Cito. And it was also DeMarlo Hale.
And Edwin. I don't know if Edwin and the Cito relationship is relevant. If it was
I'm not sure that it was. No.
But like whatever it is for Dalton, that's what he's and hey, Edwin's acting as a consultant. Right?
Well, that might help.
He was at the complex throughout spring training, right?
Yeah, that might help.
So, maybe, hey, Edwin, do me a favor, take Dalton aside. Like, I hope he's had some conversations. Because you're right. Like, listen, this guy's going to bat 5th or 6th. Yeah. Projected lineups have him batting 5th or 6th. I'm assuming 6th, probably behind the catchers to take a little pressure off.
Right? Yeah, no, it's somewhere in that range.
Maybe with Turner and Kirk, you kind of clog the base pass a little too much. So Dalton might be our 5th hitter. So look,
he's been batting 5th when they've been fielding what you figure to be your opening day roster.
What do you think about Vladdy batting 2nd? Because that's what was announced today by John Schneider. It's Springer, Vladdy, Bo.
I like it.
Yeah,
I like it.
Like, why not? Right? Like, to just run it back from last year tells me.
Yeah,
you might as well change it a little bit. Now, historically, Vlad has had much better numbers batting 3rd or 4th than he has batting 2nd.
Yeah, and I do believe that Justin Turner will offer some protection. I mean, that's so much about a 39-year-old, but I do legitimately. I mean, Turner's not your average 39, 40-year-old baseball player. Like, he still has it, right? In terms of production and being able to do it. I mean, hearing that, I don't mind, toying a little bit between Vladdy and Bo. Vladdy likes to take pitches, so maybe that makes him a little bit more suited for the 2 spot, because Bo likes to hack. They're both of them are coming off spring training hot. I mean, Bichette had a great spring training. Vladdy did as well. For me, though, it's about the power. Like the home run outage for them last year, I think cost them a lot of runs, because you don't have to be a scientist to understand what the home run does. It puts a run on the board without needing 4 base hits in a row, right? So a bloop and a blast is still important. Go ahead.
And to go back to Dalton too, like one of the things he went from 27 home runs to 20, and Bo admitted this on the air a few weeks ago when he was on the air on Sportsnet there with Blair and Barker, right? The outfield ended up being a bit of a mind bender for this team.
Why though?
It got into their heads. He admitted as a team, it got into their heads that ball should have been gone. Like that ball. Well, what happened there? Because it came in, right? The fences came in. So everyone thought, oh, wow, the bandbox is now more of a bandbox. This is going to get silly and it's going to get ridiculous.
More bandy.
For whatever reason, it doesn't.
Right.
Right? Like the height of the wall, the wind change, that's something just from moving some stuff around. Who knows?
Possible.
So, I mean, look, Yeah, and like uh, the gist of it is there aren't too many guys on this team that can have a season like they had last year, and this team's going to win more games. It's not going to happen,
No, if the offense, look, this
right?
goes back to what we were saying at the beginning. If the offense repeats for the Toronto Blue Jays, then it might be lower than 86 wins again, because I don't know how much we can trust that you're going to have this super healthy pitching rotation again.
And
Um,
it's a horrible division. Like it's a tough division.
oh, it's very tough, very tough.
Baltimore, if look, I don't know, if you told me Baltimore's going to win 100 games, I wouldn't call you an idiot.
Yeah,
Like, they might not, but I wouldn't call you an idiot. I think the Yankees have to be better than what they were last year. I don't give a shit who plays for Tampa Bay. They're going to find a way to win 90 games,
always.
right? And you're like, holy
Yeah,
crap, Sergio's batting fourth, and they're going to win 90 games this year. I don't know how the hell they did that,
yeah.
right?
And I'd hit 25 home runs doing it.
And I never feel great going into Fenway, until the
Right.
game is over.
And
I
the
never
Jays have
feel
scored
great,
30
right?
runs, right?
Right? And so it's a tough division. Now it's a more of a balanced schedule, which is
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
That's great, right? It's a balanced schedule this year, so some of that strain will be left off the
Yeah, but
Blue Jay
that's
table.
but that balanced schedule came into play last year, so that was
Okay.
the first full season of it, which means that you are playing, the National League, an equal amount of times, more than you used to in traditional interleague play, and the Jays fare well against a lot of National League teams on paper, I would say. And I think that helps you get some wins. Obviously, you
Having a
get more good.
universal DH too going on the road helps you
Yes.
too. The American League teams were at when interleague started, it was such a shit show having a like while we were at such a disadvantage, all American League teams having that pitcher hit,
Oh, big time. Big time.
so that's been evened out a bit.
Um,
I mean, how long
this
can we
year,
talk about cup holders, Serge? Right?
well,
So
no,
how
no,
long can
no.
we talk about cup holders?
I don't
Right?
want to
So
talk
that's
about
going
the
to get
cup
old
holders.
fast. So we need stories from this team. We need excitement, right?
Yeah.
We need a healthy Jansen. Like what do you think of David Schneider? Because here's the thing with Schneider. He had a great season last year, in terms of his, it was a good enough track record, right, to justify him making this team this year. He's had a horrible spring, and he still has options. He is one of the few guys on this team that has
Yep.
options,
Yep. Yep. Um, I
right?
think I think Schneider is going to get a little bit of rope, not too much. To be perfectly honest with you, I think he would have been better suited to start the season in AAA. Hasn't fully figured out how to hit that high fastball. He's another one that gets beat by the high heat. And I think that there would have been, not that I think that there would have been, just plain out, there would be more value in him getting more consistent at bats in AAA than what I think he's going to get here, because it's still a clusterfuck at second base. Look,
At the
100%.
expense of who? Like if
I,
he's down, then who's here?
I don't think it's at the expense of anybody. Like, you brought up Ernie Clement, right? So it could have been, and again, this is just being purely suggestive. It could have been a situation maybe where they just kept Eduardo Escobar around, and instead of agreeing to release him, and just gave him a spot again, just to have the ability to send down Schneider, let him get consistent at bats. Like, my question to you with Schneider is, how does he get consistent at bats here? He's battling for at bats with Kevin Biggio. Okay. In theory, with IKF, and Ernie Clement, who's up here too. And now Ernie
I
has,
I think it's right now. It's Schneider's strictly a platoon bat,
yeah,
so he
because
plays
he's going
against
to, like,
lefties.
occasionally in the outfield, and I don't see him getting enough consistent at bats to truly be able to work on the parts of the game that ail him. And I think you uncovered this little potential diamond in the rough last year. And I think that what you needed to do was let him go back down to AAA again. Let him roast. Do you know what I'm saying? Oh my God, you had a big April. Like, you're figuring it out again. You're doing well. The on base is high. You're figuring out the high fastball. You're hitting well. Then find a spot to bring him up here. Right now, I just don't think it's there, and I think that Clement earned a spot. Do you know what I'm saying? To
Yeah,
start the season,
yeah,
arguably Nathan Luke's earned a spot too, and
yeah. And we talked about that, right? Like off the air, just a more traditional fourth outfielder.
a more traditional
You
fourth
know,
outfielder because
left-handed bat too, right?
left-handed bat as well. And listen, this isn't me trying to shit on any one player. Um, Davis Schneider kind of showed me something last year that made him attractive for me to think possible future long term with this team. As good as their springs have been, I don't feel that way about Clement. I could be wrong, but I don't feel that way today about him.
I don't think there's any reason to think he's an everyday player.
And I don't feel that way about Luke's. So to have given those guys a congratulations, you made the team based on your spring, also gives me an excuse to be able to send Schneider down, let him get consistent at bats, and then a flip
Mm-hmm.
when the time comes that he's shown, hey, Schneider's had a really good April. Okay, let's get him up and let's figure out how to get him at bats. Because by that point, Kiner Falefa might be batting 125, and you're like, okay, Kevin Biggio, you're starting at third base every day.
Yeah.
Schneider, you got second, right? So I'm just, and it could work out that way regardless. But I don't think that Schneider is going to get enough consistent at bats to start the season to really show that he's overcome those kinks in his game. We understand, because you and I, like, what we hope the people that are watching watch this game long enough to understand that you come up from the minors, teams have not seen you enough, so you get a bit of an advantage because you've got all the reports in the world on the pitchers that are throwing to you, but they don't have enough on you yet. Then they start to figure you out, and then they have an entire offseason to see video. Now you're going to have to adjust to them, but you need consistent at-bats to be able to readjust to the pitchers that have adjusted to you. And I just don't see that coming for Schneider. And I think that's gonna slow the progression down a little bit and take some of the shine off of this new toy. And I just would have preferred if he was just given a little bit more leeway, start the season in AAA, figure it out, earn your way back up, and then kind of hit the ground running again. So I wonder if that's going to cost them. Again, doesn't mean that he can't be sent down. If it's a rough 2-3 week start, maybe all this is just a delay in the process that I just spoke about. Maybe it comes 3 weeks into the season where they send him down, let him get a month and a half of season, and then bring him back up again in the summer. That's always possible.
I just got the impression with spring training, no matter how poor he was, and again, we tell people don't get excited about don't get excited about the good numbers. So maybe we shouldn't be dumping on the bad numbers. But
right,
I never got the impression that he was at any threat to be sent down. So I think he's a platoon guy, and they're going to ride that out for as much as they can. And unless at some point, if they think that he's just getting really, like if the lefty struggles with Cavan or IKF, that's right. But if there's a real struggle with Biggio, maybe they let Schneider have a few more at bats. If I could ask you quickly though, on a whole other topic, when does Joey Votto play his first game as a Blue Jay?
Yeah, that's the unique part to this. So
I listened to broadcasts today where people were adamant he's not going to play a game for the team this year.
Really?
Yeah, that the health will not allow it. That there's going to be just waves of either bad health, bad luck, poor health. I don't know. Does Vogelbach, has he blocked them permanently?
Yeah, I don't know that it's a permanent block. I mean, obviously the messaging to Vogelbach from manager John Schneider was, don't worry about it. Don't look over your back. What else are you supposed to say as a coach? Yeah. Like, you want that guy to come off the bench and do something for you that's relative from the left-hand side late in the game or whatnot. I think with Joey Votto, the interesting part is this. Look, when he first came on and it was late, he spoke, about I'm ready to do extended spring training and then go to AAA and earn my way up. I think there's just too much there for them not to inevitably bring him up. Now, if it's a health thing, that's uncontrollable, right? But he hasn't looked unhealthy.
But I think there's just too many potential moments of what could be a rather stagnant season to not bring him up, right? Like, you have a 39-year-old DH now. So who cares if the 39-year-old DH, and I don't wish, him ill, but, back spasm, sprains an ankle, oblique, whatever it is.
I
that you
think
don't bring up
Joey
the
Votto.
40-year-old local boy.
I think that first off, I think that Joey Votto can still hit. I mean, he showed that before he took a misstep in the dugout. Um, I just, like that guy's going to get an extended spring training. He's going to go to AAA. He's going to see some pitching, and we're going to be watching. Like we're going to be stat watching, and Votto can still draw walks. Like it's still relative, and he still has power. And I know that the average was down the last couple of years, but injuries attested to what you saw there. He comes back last year for Cincinnati after a long injury layoff, and he's got to kind of like he's got to catch up to speed on the fly last year. So the average wasn't there, but he still had 14 home runs
Yeah.
in a couple of hundred at bats. And I look at that and I'm like, the power's still there. Don't fool yourself. Power's still there. I think that this guy could be a relative piece off the bench. And, much to what you said, the story is just more exciting with him than it is with Vogelback. And I know this is going to sound like, really? You had to go there? But, ladies and gentlemen, there's going to be a point this season where Alejandro Kirk comes up to the plate and gets a base hit. And maybe the Jays are down a run at that point, and they're going to pinch hit and bring Vogelback to the plate. And then he's going to get a base hit. And now you're going to have Pudgy 1 and Pudgy 2 on first and second. And whoever it is that comes up after them is going to hit a gapper. And instead of scoring around, the bases are going to be loaded.
Yeah.
Like, you understand what I'm saying? It's going to stop with Kirk at third base because you can't send him, and Vogelback isn't that much faster. It's the same speed. And I think that that's relative, right? So you have Vogelback on the bench right now because of the power. It's unquestionable. And he does. Like, the power is there. But I believe the power is also there with Votto, and the speed factor goes up by 7. And that speaks more to how slow Vogelback is and not how fast Votto is. But Votto can still hit second base comfortably with a gapper. Alejandro Kirk and Daniel Vogelback cannot. So I think that's relative. Like, when I look at what's the ideal bench piece, the ideal bench piece for me is can the guy clear the fence, with one swing of the bat? Check mark for Vogelback, check mark for Votto. Who's got the better on base percentage? Edge to Joey Votto, because the eye, even at 40 years old, is still exceptional. So you can still draw the walk, and that puts pressure. Because when you look at the moments of when these guys will come up to pinch hit, they don't pinch hit for George Springer or Vladdy or Bo. They're pinch hitting for the bottom of your lineup. So it's that point where Kiermaier is in a spot or IKF is in a spot, and they want to go to the bench to try to get a power spot, right? Depending on the pitcher and everything.
Some really weird scenarios, though. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to pinch hit for Kiermaier, right? And then weaken yourself defensively late in the game.
Yeah, but
that's why I was saying, from a trade perspective, go out and get that bopper in left field, because Kiermaier.
If you're down in the game and you're looking to come back, or the game is, it's a scenario where maybe the game is tied and it's the bottom of the ninth, and
it's a 2-1 game when one of these guys gets put into the game,
or a tie game, game at home, where it's like, okay, now we're tied, we're in the bottom of the ninth, and whoever's batting sixth got on base. I'm going for the win. I'm not going for extra innings. So KK, you're coming out, and for now it's Vogelback, get in there and see if you can gap one or take one over the wall and end this game now,
So here's the thing with this team, though, too. Like, we've followed this team for so long, and there have been some disappointing seasons where they have completed spring training and we felt like they didn't have any question marks. You had like the 2013 season after the trade with them.
After the trade with the Marlins, where and the Mets with Dickey. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, this team is stacked, 96 wins, 100. Somebody was picking them like, I think this team's going to win 104. Like, it was something stupid, right?
Well, they were the World Series favorite after those 2 wins.
Like, when you take the seasons that have really kind of brought us, some real excitement, just like fun memorable seasons, 2015, 2016. I just can't remember if we've been going into spring training and still feeling insecure about what we think should still be a team that's a quote unquote contender.
I remember
Right?
2015, we were very confident about that team. But that's the team that they were either at 500 or just below 500
Yeah,
when they made the first trade for Tulowitzki.
right.
So when Anthopoulos is pushing the chips all in, they're not even at 500 yet.
No, that was the this isn't the
Yeah.
tri league, right?
This isn't the tri league, exactly. And then it all, and then post trade deadline, 42 and whatever to finish the year, 42 and 15. I don't remember what it was, but some ridiculous run that got them, the division win and then into the playoffs.
I am thinking it doesn't need to be at the time a Tulowitzki, but Atkins needs to have a bullet in his chamber that he's going to be able to make a move at some point during this season. This team, 86, misses the playoffs, in my opinion. I hope I'm wrong. I've been wrong before. But this team, with a couple of moves, gets to 93, and now you're in the wild card contention because I think Baltimore looks like 98. Baltimore. Because they've got chips. They've got so many chips they could play too, right? Like, before anybody makes a trade with the Blue Jays, you might want to give Baltimore a call and say, hey, this is what Toronto's offering. Can you beat it? And the answer will be, well, we can. We just may choose not to. We don't have to.
We may choose not to.
Because we're 70 and 6.
Okay. Well, it's not untrue by any stretch of the imagination with it. So, look, let's put a bow on this preview. We've both, we've mentioned 86 a couple times here. That's kind of where we feel that they're at. There's definitely room for this team to improve in some areas, and they definitely have some bullets in the chamber to be able to do it. It's not, it's not the best prospect pool out there. So again, we're not suggesting any trades for some superstar or anything like that. But again, that's not really what this team needs. The heart of this order, for this team is pretty much set. But is it a corner outfield at some point where Varsho maybe moves to center field and you get someone else who's just got a better bat? That's been mentioned. Is third base is obviously a bit of a sore spot right now. Is there a guy out there? Cleveland, can you shit the season and maybe?
Yes,
I mean, every year I will say Jose it. There is Ramirez, nobody more perfect for the Jays than Jose Ramirez.
Correct.
That's it. Everything that you need. A left-handed hitting third baseman. I think he's the only one in baseball. So it's I'm wrong. Sorry, team. Devers is the other one.
If you root against a team, Jays fans, if you're hoping for another team to lose,
root against
Cleveland. Root against the Guardians. Because
because that's where you want it. Okay, so I every year we kind of we're going to make a prediction of who you think is going to be there at the end of the year, what you think the World Series is going to be, and I know that we haven't. We haven't done a deep dive to really talk about any of the other teams in baseball. The fact that the Dodgers pretty much signed everyone this offseason that they wanted, and then San Francisco, as we mentioned, took all of the Boris clients and gave them contracts.
Yeah, they kind of had the offseason of so we weren't in on Ohtani, so we swooped up everybody else, and that's what we thought the Jays were going to do when they missed out on Ohtani. And then kind of brought in at least a couple of them, right? Yeah. Okay. Anyways, yeah.
So what I'm going to say, give me your World Series prediction. So let's do this in reverse order. Give me a team that is not necessarily on anyone's radar that you think will surprise this year, and then give me your World Series prediction.
Oh, who's going to surprise?
Yeah.
My surprise team this year. So you don't count Seattle as a surprise, right? Because Seattle, misses out on the wild card by one game last year, so they're not really a surprise, right? I'm going to say this:
I'd say that
Pittsburgh Pirates
Okay.
The Pittsburgh Pirates are going to compete for a playoff spot this season.
I like that because that's where I was leaning to.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a
Um,
lot still has to go right for Pittsburgh, but they're kind of
correct.
like not necessarily really on anyone's radar. But the Central really isn't,
Yeah.
it's not the NL Central isn't what it was.
Right.
86 might not get you in the American League, but 85, 86 might get you a wild card spot in the National
Yeah.
League.
Like Pittsburgh and Cincinnati, like they were a competing team last year for the
Yeah.
playoffs. Them and
Yeah.
Miami, the Cubs, you're kind of either going to win the division, you know.
Or
I don't know.
not
I
make
kind of see
playoffs.
like that division's kind of weird for me, but it's a fun division. It's got a lot of teams in that division that I like. World Series,
Two teams. Who do you think are going to be there? You don't have to give me the winner. Just who do you think's going to make it to the World Series?
maybe they learned their lesson last year by not winning a game either. And we haven't necessarily learned our lesson by not winning a game and then being better the following year. But just based on the talent, I'm going to go with Baltimore and Atlanta.
Baltimore and
And
Atlanta.
that being said, it was Texas and Arizona last year, and who the hell picked those two? But I'll go with Baltimore and
Nobody.
Atlanta.
So like I said, I'm with you on the surprise. Pittsburgh can be a team that at the end of the year, I mean, they might only have 65 wins, or it's just like they're not really on anyone's true radar, right?
Yeah.
They're just, again, because of that division and everything, I think that they can surprise there. World Series prediction for me, two teams that'll be there. I am going to go with Tampa
Oh,
and Philadelphia.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
We've seen that one before.
Yeah. And listen, I'm all aboard with Philly in the playoffs, though, eh? Like,
Yeah.
there isn't a playoff atmosphere that I enjoy watching more right now. I mean, outside of our own, when we can get rowdy, but
Yeah.
my God, that Philly crowd,
Yeah.
when that offense starts to come to life, that's hard to
that's
play
a
in.
team that's a classic baseball playoff team, right? Where
Oh
it's like,
yeah,
no, they'll struggle enough. They'll find a way to not win the division, and then they'll
right.
find a way to get hot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like white hot. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
For
kind of
sure.
where I have it. Okay. So we'll wrap it up there. Hey, listen, thanks for joining us on this preview for the Blue Jays season. I don't have to tell you that both Anthony and I are truly hoping that the Jays do finish with more than 86 wins.
Yes.
Our prediction is not our hope. It's just where we kind of feel at today. We so desperately want this team to make the playoffs and really find a way. I hope that we don't get to the offseason and we're talking about firing this front office. Realistically, they probably should have been fired after last season, but they managed to survive that. As fans, we have to buy in. Unfortunately, that's what it is. If you're going to be a fan of the team, you have to understand that the analytics are a big part of how this front office operates, and you hope that maybe last year was just a down year offensively, and that all of the numbers and the metrics that they were talking about behind the scenes find a path for the Jays. And we're talking about a team that maybe gives us a little bit more hope a few months from now than what we all feel today. So again, we hope you all have a good week. Thank you for tuning in. We will catch up with you on the next episode, everyone. Have a good day.
Cup holders. Ciao.
Bye, everyone.